Hello everyone, happy Friday. It's Menenberg coming to you again with another episode of The Worst. If you watched my first episode, I talked about how remote learning is the worst. In each of these successive episodes, I'm going to rant about a particular subject, and before I continue, I want to qualify this and just make clear to my audience that I am not saying that this topic that I'm going to talk about is in fact the worst thing in existence or in the worst thing in history or anything like that. It is hyperbolic language. I am exaggerating to make a point. This is my forum to rant, so just calm down, okay? Don't send me an angry email saying, no, actually remote learning isn't the worst, or whatever the topic is. I had this happen to my family, that's way worse, so you need to stop. Okay, stop. That's not what this is about. So, for this week's episode, I was really struggling to come up with a topic because there's so many good ones to choose. And so I settled on Karens in particular. And for those of you who are not familiar with this term, I'm going to take a sip of coffee from my mug that says the worst, and then I'm going to read you a Wikipedia definition, because what better source than Wikipedia? Okay. Wikipedia defines the term Karen as a pejorative term used in the United States and other English-speaking countries for a woman perceived as entitled or demanding beyond the scope of what is appropriate or necessary. A common stereotype is that of a white woman who uses her privilege to demand her own way at the expense of others. Depictions also include demanding to speak to the manager, anti-vaccination beliefs, being racist, or sporting a particular bob haircut style. As of 2020, the term has increasingly been used as general-purpose term for disapproval for middle-aged women, white women. Okay, before continuing, I'm going to get rid of most of this definition to suit my needs, because that's my privilege, this is my thing, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to stick with the idea that a Karen is somebody who is entitled and has a very demanding mentality that is beyond the scope of what is appropriate or necessary. So it could be a man, it could be someone of any age, any race, don't really care. The rest you can debate on your own time, but for the sake of our episode this morning, this afternoon, whenever you're watching this, let's just say somebody who's a little bit entitled and a little bit up in everyone else's business when they have no place being that. Okay, so the reason I feel like Karens are the worst is because they give you something that you didn't ask for at a time when you and we as a society don't really need it. Let's be honest, my friends, we are living in a very not great year. 2020 has been a mixed bag at best for most of us. Right now we're living in the midst of a pandemic. We have a very heated political election season going on, and there is a lot of social unrest going on as well in the United States of America and elsewhere. That and the host of other problems, okay? There's some good stuff sprinkled in there, but for the sake of our conversation, 2020 has been a mixed bag. Shall we agree? Yes? Thank you. What we don't need is a bunch of busybody, opinionated, entitled folks coming out and telling us what to do, what to think, how to live in realms they really don't need to. And I'm going to give you an example just briefly to kind of illustrate my point. I work, as some of you may know, in a public school. And my public school is closed right now, so we are doing 100% remote learning. Watch last episode. And as a result, there's very few people actually in the building. I like being in the building, so I'm in the building. There are large, wide halls, and you may see 2 or 3 people the entire day, just to give you some context. And I had a great couple of examples of some Karen activity in these interactions. Again, I'm not going to comment on whether or not people should wear masks or quarantine or whatever it is. We have to wear masks. So I don't know where you're watching. You may not have to wear a mask. We have to wear masks in the building. I'm fine with that. There is an exception, of course, and if I'm working in my classroom by myself, no one's there, I don't have to wear a mask. So I don't, right? It's kind of constrictive. No one loves wearing masks in general, let's be honest. And so I don't wear a mask. Well, like most of you, I didn't grow up wearing masks. I wasn't born wearing a mask. And so when I do my daily activities in general, I'm not wearing a mask. Obviously, I'm going to abide by the rules as best I can. And so when I enter the building, I put on my mask and whatever. But admittedly, there have been occasions where I forgot. I was in my classroom working, and then I walked out to use the restroom, for example, and I forgot to wear the mask. Well, I had a few interactions with some Karens on this, and again, context is key, people. I'm talking about a 25-foot distance between me and said Karen. And they looked at me multiple times, different people, like I just murdered their family because I wasn't wearing a mask. Okay? Getting the picture, people? This type of activity, this type of Karen behavior is going to cause the death of our society, I believe. And it's important for us, as we think about Karens being the worst, that we reflect. Because one key characteristic of a Karen is a lack of self-awareness. So I want you to take a moment real quick and think of the people in your lives who may fit that sort of description. Lack of self-awareness, officious, busybody, entitled, demanding to the point that it's not really reasonable. And if you have a person in your life, if you are that person in your life, it's time to change. It's time to reflect. What we need right now, my friends, in this uncertain times, these turbulent times that we are living, is a little bit of grace. We need a little bit of patience, a little bit of forgiveness, and a little less assuming that everyone else is a terrible person. I'm not the best person, but I'm not a terrorist for walking to the restroom and forgetting to wear my mask. I'm sorry. So, look, I think Karens are the worst. I do also believe, though, that the human race is capable of getting better. And so, if you are a Karen, if you know a Karen, I'd love to see a little bit of change. And if you think I'm a Karen, I'm willing to take a look in the mirror. What I'd love to hear from you, though, in the comment section, please tell me your Karen story. Tell me about the Karen in your life. And if you're from a different culture, I know that this is kind of an American term, but I'm assuming that there is a similar term or similar idea in other cultures about just people in general who take on that kind of role that nobody chose them for, right? They're in everyone's business, they're being demanding, they're asking to speak to the manager, and they're doing so with a complete lack of self-awareness and a lack of reading the room. So if you have a term like that for your own culture that is different than the term Karen, I'd love to hear that as well. In any case, that's all I have time for today. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you also feel like Karens are the worst. And until next time, remember, life is about choices, my friends. We'll see you next week.